Customer experience is the backbone of any business, but in solar, it's often treated as an afterthought. Think about it. Referrals and five-star reviews are some of the most powerful drivers of growth, yet they depend entirely on how a customer feels throughout their journey. From the first consultation to post-sale installation support, every interaction matters. Unfortunately, the solar industry has a reputation of falling short. Long project timelines, poor communication, and unmet expectations have left many homeowners frustrated. Yet there's a huge opportunity here, an opportunity to rethink how we engage with customers and turn every interaction into a moment of trust building. Scott Nguyen, founder of Bodhi, saw these challenges firsthand as a customer himself. He realized that better communication, smarter workflows, and the right tools could transform the way solar companies manage their customer relationships. Bodhi is now helping installers across the country reduce cancellations, boost referrals, and improve customer satisfaction. Today, we'll discuss why customer experience is a competitive advantage in solar, how technology is reshaping it, and what lessons we can learn from companies that are doing it right. Scott's perspective isn't just theoretical. It's backed by years of real-world application and data. Whether you're an installer, customer, or just curious about the industry, this is a conversation that will make you rethink the way solar companies approach service and customer experience. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason.
You got it. So what I'd love to start with is, what inspired you to start Bodhi, right? What were the challenges that you initially set out to address, and how have those challenges and objectives shifted as you've gone through?
Yeah, really interesting question. I mean, like you said in the intro, this started when I was a solar customer. So this was probably 6 years ago or so when I put solar on my house here in Austin. And actually, that was the very first time I got to experience energy as a consumer, other than having to open up a electricity bill and pay that utility bill. And what was really surprising is that, as I've got a PhD in physics, I think not many people know, but I come from that sciencey world of energy, hardware. And so when I was thinking about getting solar, I had these high expectations. Solar is the state-of-the-art technology. It's all the consumers are buying into the energy transformation. And what was really surprising was that I had these high expectations, and then I get met with effectively what is a home energy or home services type of experience. And for anyone who's done home renovation or had to get a plumber, you know what that type of experience is. And so that mismatch in expectations, it doesn't just provide anxiety for the customer, the consumer, but then all that anxiety ends up just leading to just huge headaches for the solar company itself. And so that's really why we started Bodhi, because after having conversations with a lot of other customers or neighbors that went solar, they had the same experience. And so we started Bodhi that way. And what we soon learned, and this was the interesting part, was that if you take a step back from this whole push, you start to realize that this whole push to this greener energy future, it's always been focused on the hardware, on the technology. It's that engineering, but it's that user experience, that customer experience that had been neglected. So Bodhi was really formed to focus in on that customer experience and then try to really get the experience so great that we get to leverage the virality of consumerism so that we can drive the wide scale adoption of solar. So that's really how everything got started.
It's really fascinating how you described the hardware solution versus neglecting the customer experience. It reminds me of two things, right? Solar is really a home improvement project, at least on the residential application. I know we all think it's exciting green technology, which it is, but it really is a home improvement project at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of analogies to redoing your basement, your kitchen, your bathroom that are applicable. And then similarly with electric vehicles, right? Everyone wants the technology. It makes sense, but we forget about range anxiety and the frustration of taking hours to recharge your vehicle and the customer experience that gets involved with greening and updating our workflows day to day.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, but what's interesting is that we're saying that, and that fact is very, very true. But if you take it from the customer's perspective, they actually don't think of solar as a home project. They're like, I'm putting, I'm buying this really fancy technology. And that's the big disconnect. And that's what can lead to that. Just mismatch in expectations is really what leads to a lot of the challenges that we see in the industry.
You're in Texas, which has actually been one of the fastest growing solar markets, and ironically, the oil and gas capital of the country. So I'd love for you to expand, although you're in Austin, so maybe some caveats, right?
I used to live in Houston.
Okay, there you go. All right.
And for those that don't know, I actually spent 4 years working for Shell Oil.
Oh, wow.
So.
Let's not tell too many people that. but if you could just go a little bit deeper on why you think homeowners don't see this as a clean energy application. I mean, of course, they see it as an application, but like why that's not their main incentive, right? It's probably economics, resiliency, but what does that actually mean tangibly to their experience?
No, I think it was interesting. I mean, so I'm in Texas, so we are, we have the history of oil and gas, but we also have the history of the ERCOT and the deregulated markets. And so I think what's been really telling, let's just go back to 2021, the winter of 2021 and February of that year. We had a huge freeze that probably blanketed about 75% of Texas. During that period, over the course of sometimes between 24 hours up to a week, there was no power and it was freezing cold. And that was one of the biggest booms for solar here in Texas. And I think this plays out across the states where, yes, we sell solar based off of, hey, you're going to save money because you're going to save $10 a month. But really, a lot of folks, what they're doing is they're really looking for that independence, that reliability. And they're like, hey, I have to rely on utility. This is government. This doesn't work. It didn't work for me during this period of time. Actually, the over 700 people actually died indirectly because of that freeze. And so all of that together brings up this demand for solar plus storage. And I think with the maturation of the industry, so that it's not just solar, it is now solar plus storage, plus a lot of other, smart devices and stuff. That's what people are looking for these days. And so you'll see that now. That happens after all the hurricane events along the coast, the Gulf Coast, and even now in North Carolina. So
that does echo what we heard recently. I was on a call with an installer out of Tennessee, and he said almost 100% attachment rates for systems. We've heard similar things about Western North Carolina, given the hurricane and the tragedy that happened there. They suspect a massive uptick of battery usage. So I we've seen that trend in Utah and California for both natural disasters and NEM reasons, but I think that's spot on. I want to shift to the other side of the equation, because I think customer experience can always be focused on the end customer, but I want you to make the pitch and explain why it's actually critical for solar installers and how does it influence their process and their growth.
Okay, so what's really with customer experience, it is the fact that customers are hard, and customers, their expectations are changing. And the challenge is, how does a solar company with their staff and the limited margins that a solar company operates in, how can they actually provide the service to the customer? I mean, you've got to first think about it from the customer's perspective, because they're buying a $25, $30, $50, $100,000 purchase. It could be like the third most expensive thing that they ever purchased. And then second, it's new to them. And so this is where they get a lot of questions. And if they don't get those questions answered appropriately or timely, this is where the anxiety. So that translates back to the solar company who's like, okay, I can do the sales, but now what do I do? How can I provide what's still required is a white glove service with very limited type of resources? And normally the way that companies have historically done this is just, hire more customer support reps, hire more project managers, hire more project coordinators, and they're picking up the phone, they're sending emails, they're texting on their phone. This is not scalable. And this is where it becomes a big challenge as as you can, even though you can start to grow even linearly and it's not great, you're not getting any economies of scale as you're growing if you continue to hire your way through that scaling. But inevitably, there will be some customer that falls through the cracks. And when that customer falls through the crack and that customer gets escalated, the outsized impact of an angry customer completely weighs down the entire organization. The project manager is like, oh gosh, I have to talk to this customer. And maybe that gets escalated to the salesperson who's like, hey, are you threatening my deal? Is this customer going to cancel? Am I going to get a clawback because of that? Or it goes to the CEO or the owner of the company who's like, I have no idea what was promised to them. I don't know what to say or do, well, I don't know what was previously said and what actually happened. And that is what a lot of the challenges of the solar industry or the solar company that doesn't have the tools in place to be able to handle the volume and combined with the high expectations of customers. Those are the challenges that they face, and that's what can lead to some major challenges, 1-star reviews that then start to depress sales overall. So
that makes a lot of sense. The company I told you about in Tennessee actually came to us because they got dinged with a massive 1-star review because of a change order. And they said, well, we got to stop, over promising, under delivering on system size. We need a better fitment tool. They called it. This was in 2019.
I heard there's a really nice software that can help reduce change orders.
Yeah, we've heard of one. But it was interesting because we've seen this also, even speaking about your experience in Texas, on the O&M side, not being able to clean up and fulfill and do service work after a hailstorm, you get a lot of reviews. And it's just fascinating to see everything post-sale, whether it's change orders and revisions or service or O&M, or even just simple inquiries that then hit the review boards, and that affects sales. Right? Installers are so focused on sales often, which makes sense. That's the lifeblood of the organization. That's the capital. That's the flow of money. But it's holistic from a value chain perspective. And if you don't have good ops, it is going to circle back to sales. And I call that the death spiral. Right? Yeah. You've seen this with a lot of contractors, right? They might sell a lot, but if they can't fulfill it, then they're not going to be able to sell a lot in the next wave. And then they expand their geographic territory to get other deals that they can bring in. But then they can't fulfill those at all because they're even further away and the ROI makes even less sense. And then, it's you pay Perry to meet Paul, whatever the expression is, and they just death spirals. And we've seen that story too often.
I mean, I think it is. So you've got that death spiral that happens towards on the post install side of things where, it's a horrible experience. But this can actually be impacted on the, earlier on as well. Projects get canceled. The industry average for cancellations is 30%.
What stage is that?
That is from signing a contract to about right before the permit gets submitted.
Really?
Yes.
30%.
So there's 30% of, so the industry average is 30%. 75% of cancellations occur during that window. And it's there's a number of reasons that can happen, but a lot of times it's just, there was a combination of poor communication. Customer comes in, contracts, but then they get all the attention. Customers get all the attention from the salesperson during the sales process. Get handed over to operations. They're overworked. They're not actually following up. So there's another company that you're very familiar with. I won't name names, but one of our friends went solar with them. It took them 4 weeks to get after signing the contract, to get any response from the operations team. So what can happen during this period are cancellations. And the other part is that you've got now a lot of sales organizations working with EPCs. So so the information flow can be there's a lot of friction. And so what I'll basically say is that there's a lot of friction these days in the sales to operations handoff. And so there are a lot of cancellations based off of that. And that's why you see the sales EPC model have a higher cancellation rate than just the vertically integrated ones. But still, I mean, I was once talking to a company that had a 60% cancellation rate. I couldn't understand how they would operate. I mean, they eventually got a little bit better, probably down to 55, but still.
I don't think that's going to continue in our industry because of
Hmm.
the way financing payments have gone, right? A lot of financing, you got something at M1 or
Hmm.
M0, and now it's all back-ended to
Yep.
PTO.
Hmm.
That can't last anymore. And I
Yeah.
do think that standards will evolve as financing companies, I, I hope don't make too many requirements, but evolve their requirements and their processes.
Yeah. And
Um,
what we've seen is that the EPCs who there are a lot of really good EPCs. They have great operations, but if the EPCs that focus in on customer experience can really limit the cancellations, and then are able to show the sales dealers, the sales reps, providing transparency into the actual process, communication with customers. They've seen that they're able to retain much higher quality, both retain higher quality sales reps, but also draw in new sales reps as well. And so that's an interesting facet that gets overlooked sometimes.
that's really interesting. All right, let's do this. I want to continue making the pitch for installers,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd love for you to speak to some of the ROI and some of the metrics. I want to call out that your website has some really interesting case studies that actually and very accurately quantify the benefits of customer experience and doing it right. But I'd love if you could share a couple of success stories where improved customer experience led to measurable results for installers, right? Because when you and I speak qualitatively or anecdotally about both of our businesses improving process, especially post sale, it's like, oh, is that nice to have? Cool. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for you to really dig into a tangible ROI. And I know you have some examples
Mm-hmm.
of it that really help installers understand how this can move the needle.
Yeah, I'll say maybe I can talk about probably kind of I'll talk about three, and it kind of goes into one into the other. So, I'll give you one great example that's very, very tangible is that the way that we actually handle documents and facilitate document sharing and e-signatures as well has been a really big boost to helping the project coordinators, project managers, customer support reps get the documents that they need. So previously our customers were using, let's say one of the customers out of Arizona, they were using Adobe Sign to get their documents signed. It would generally take them 1, maybe up to 2 weeks to get those signatures. And we've learned that that's actually pretty standard for most companies. Once they implemented Bodhi, they were able to get those signatures within a couple of hours for the most part. And so that time to sign has now shrunk. And what that means is not just that, hey, I've gone from a week down of just getting a document. That pushes the entire project forward. And so that helps to impact not just the workload that a project manager has, but it impacts um, those M1 payments that are needed, and therefore that impacts the cash flow. And everything about solar is about managing cash flow. So that's one very specific thing. The second thing is as you're improving the efficiency of your operation staff, they're able to actually handle twice as many projects as they're used to. So one of our customers, I think actually a joint customer of ours, AM Sun out in California, they read, their customer experience manager said, yeah, we used to be able to handle max 60 and felt overloaded. Now, at 60 projects at any given time, now they're able to handle twice that, over 100, and feel completely fine with that. And so once you are able to give the staff the tools they need to provide the service they really do want to provide, they get the benefits. And then in the end, when a customer has a good experience, it's their credibility on the line when they give the referral. And so when they have a good experience, they will, when someone asks them, hey, tell me more about that solar on your roof, they can say, hey, it's a 6.5 kilowatt system. It was installed by, for example, Lighthouse Solar, one of our joint customers. They told us that they got about 30% more referrals once they implemented Bodhi from before as well. And so that is kind of where you go from having tools that do specific things to help the team, and how can you elevate their performance so that in the end you got some measurable major impact on the business itself.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, I'm going to summarize what you just said. From the signature side and getting deals through the pipeline faster, we're talking about, it could be upwards of a 50% reduction in time for signatures to come through. And then in theory, that could translate into glass on the roof faster. That's not just getting M1s done, but that's M2s and M3s. In a place like Arizona, in some of those parts where there's more simple permitting, you're talking about getting paid basically in the same amount of time for everything in which you would have just gotten that signature in the first place. So that's a at least 50% reduction of time on the overall process. You've got 2x, so a doubling of capabilities of handling service calls and communications. And so if you have 2 people and you're scaling your business, you don't need to hire another 2 more. You can stay with your 2 people, right?
Yeah.
And then I just want to call it the 30% increase of referrals, right? And I think from both of our experiences talking with installers, referrals are the best form of leads. They're the ones that convert over the most. I mean, I was on the phone with someone out of Texas who was a very inbound oriented group. And he said he closes 40% of his inbounds because now most of them are from referrals.
Yeah. So referrals,
so it's huge.
Yeah. Referrals historically have about a 50% close rate. The other thing that's great about referrals, they generally have higher contract values because the people that are being referred, they generally don't, what's the phrase? They're
Price
not looking. Shop. Yeah, they don't price shop.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay. I mean, that happened for me. And it's, so then you get that, but what's been nice longer term is you've got the referrals, but the world changing, the consumers are changing. Everyone wants not just solar, but now there's batteries, there's EV chargers, there's smart panels, there's other things that are becoming available to the consumer. And what's the opportunity are these follow-on sales as well. And so that's where you're going to be able to really lower customer acquisition costs, because now there's going to be, solar's mature enough so that you're not just selling a new system to a new customer all the time. Now you're selling an expanded system to an existing customer or to a second home. And if the customer had a bad experience, they're not going to go back to you. But then second, if the customer doesn't even remember who you are because you don't have good engagement with them post-install, they're going to just call up any of their other companies in the area. So it was kind of interesting. One of those persons I was talking to, it was a consumer. She told me she actually has 2 homes. And the first time she went with Tesla, had a horrible experience. Then on her second home, I think her vacation home, she went with a local installer. And she said, I had a great experience. And I asked her, can you tell me what the name of that company is? And she's like, I don't remember.
Wow.
So she remembers Tesla because they have a great brand. They're always there. But they had a bad experience. But yeah, this company, that second local company, spent however much on customer acquisition costs, like whatever, $2,000 to $4,000, $5,000, and that was a one-time sale. They never, if a customer doesn't remember you, they're not going to come back again, and so you don't get that lifetime customer value that is possible in this in the industry these days.
What's really interesting now is that I believe solar installers are becoming home electrification companies in a lot of cases. Even if they only do solar in the first go, it's actually really important that customer experience goes well, because in this day and age, they're going to attach a battery in a couple of years in almost every market if they have the expense profile, right? They're going to probably attach an EV charger in the next 5 to 7 years. And depending on the market, like the Northeast or other parts, it could be a heat pump or a new roof. And so as these businesses evolve, especially the ones that are very quality oriented, it's not just one and done experience. You need to be memorable. You want to get that call back. Same thing with a strategy that we love seeing on the topic of referrals. We know that some of our customers at Scanify will use a drone as a closing tool, or they'll arm the site surveyor with a couple of resources. And so they might knock on the door and say, hey, I'm here to fly the drone. We're just going to get some basic imagery. And then they might go to the neighbor's house right before they fly and say, oh, by the way, we're going to fly a drone on your neighbor's house. If you have a pet, you want to make sure that they're okay to not interrupt them. They're holding the drone right there in their hand. And that neighbor is like, what are you flying the drone for? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, my neighbor's getting solar? There's a referral.
Mm-hmm.
That gets the whole block going solar with you,
Mm-hmm.
the installer. Again, there's ways to be memorable, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's technology on what Scalably does or technology what Bodhi's doing by having great communication. And that's what leads to more referrals. And I didn't know that it's a
Yeah.
50% conversion on, referrals. That's enormous.
Yeah.
That is spectacular.
That is true. And I think that's the thing is that in the end, if a company, I'll say a couple of things. So I think in general, if a company focuses on customer experience, a lot of studies have shown, and from asking customers, that customers are actually willing to pay up to about a 15% premium for better customer experience. And so, when you're a company that's always trying to sell something the cheapest, the lowest cost, it's going to be a race to the bottom. But there are those companies that when they build up their brand, they build up their reputation within the industry, or with not the industry, but in that community, then they're going to be known like to be delivering quality service, quality experiences that they can charge a premium for. And I think what's really important is that the companies need to figure out how to do this in a way that isn't like just throwing people at the problem. Like for example, let's go back to the marketing, the post-install kind of follow-on sales question. Well, the good companies are the ones that actually have one or two good sales folks who probably once a year pick up the phone and call all of their customers, all of their old leads as well, to try to drum up more business. And that is a way that they can get these follow-on sales. But that's a manual process. It's great. That's that personal touch is great, but it is a manual process, and it's not going to be done by everybody within the sales team, for example. And therefore, these companies, if they want to really be able to capitalize on this opportunity for follow-on sales, they need better tools to be able to do this effectively. And so right now they generally don't have it. Sales folks are busy trying to sell new deals. Service folks are trying to troubleshoot systems that are inverters that are and optimizers and whatever that are down. The marketing folks is always trying to sell new, develop new content. So folks are kind of busy. And so is there a way for them to be able to consistently and automatically engage their customers with effectively hyper-personalized recommendations post-install, and do it periodically all throughout that customer relationship? That's what's needed.
Let's stay on the theme of technology. I know you wrote a great article about the theme of AI in solar.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your perspective on AI, how it's enhancing the customer journey. Do you see any drawbacks? What's your philosophy about how AI is going to affect our industry?
That was interesting. I mean, when was it? About a year and a half ago, the big AI hype was out there, and it kind of caught everybody by surprise. But pretty soon you started seeing like companies offer these AI services. And so I was talking to one company, one installer out of New Mexico. They're like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for this lead gen AI thing that's going to be able to, you know, re-engage all of my old leads. It's going to be great. And so as my really small sales team, I just can't do that right now. Well, the guy, he tried it out, and it just was horrible. AI in this type of use case just wasn't applicable. And our perspective is that, the generative AI that you have from OpenAI, from Google Gemini, it's great. But for something as specific as solar, with customers who have so many questions because it's a new purchase, and the fact that these customer relations are so sensitive, AI is just not ready for that type of use case. But what we found to be really great was that across the industry, companies like yours, companies like Demand IQ, they were using AI in a way that made a difference. And so for us, what we wanted to do was we took about a year to research exactly how AI could be best used for our customers, our installers. And the key thing that we figured out was that, most of the time, you actually have no idea how a customer's feeling as they go through either the sales process, the install process, or even post-install. Because most of the time, customers, don't actually want to talk to you. Um, and you send them surveys. Survey submission rates are like 5 or 10%. So at any given time, 90% of your customers, you have no idea how they're feeling. And then that's where right off the bat, not right off the bat, but at some point you get surprised by a 1-star review, for example. And so we used AI to be able to pull in all the information that we have on a customer, their conversations, their survey responses, if they do provide it, any of the other information. And we're able to actually assess if a customer's sentiment is positive, negative, or neutral. And we do that in real time. So we released this product feature at RE Plus SBI in Anaheim, and it's gone over really well. One of our customers recently told me, she's like, that her customer ambassador team actually now thinks of it as a game. They're trying to turn any sort of red face, yellow face into a green face. And what she said was like, it's so surprising the impact that just a little face with an icon face can have on the way that the team operates.
That's really fascinating. I agree with you in terms of applications. When it's trying to mimic a human, I think it has a way to go. When it is helping a human, it's assisting a human, it's helping a human scale, there's already a lot of great applications. I was really impressed with your tool. And I think it's something that can really inform how we provide service to the industry. So
yeah,
very excited for that advancement.
Yeah. But I'll say, like, we are moving towards the AI is getting better. Companies are able to understand the best ways to use it and then build from that. And so for us as well at our company, we will be leaning into AI more this coming year, 2025. And so there should be some interesting releases coming out, hopefully Q1, Q2 of next year.
Awesome. One final question for you as we wrap up. What advice do you have for installers looking to improve customer experience and build long-term trust? Obviously, sign up for Bodhi. We totally endorse that. But any other strategies that you recommend people do that you've seen be successful?
Yeah, I think there's really something that is really important. And we actually do this as part of our onboarding process, is we actually do a customer journey workshop. And what that really does is a company should actually map out their customer's journey throughout their entire process, from when a lead comes in, through the sales, through the different stages, and then really focus on the transition points, the sales to operations handoff, the operations to service handoff. And because those are points of that can diverge. So at those moments, what you want to do in a customer journey mapping is to identify the excited points and the low points, and the points in which a customer's sentiment may diverge because of something that happened. So for example, permitting is an area that can diverge dramatically. If you're waiting on the utility or the city to approve a permit, it's out of your hands, but the customer still thinks that you're responsible for that. And they can easily, if you don't handle that situation well, by first setting expectations and then two, following up properly, they can go to a very negative sentiment very quickly. But if you are able to set those expectations appropriately, be proactive in providing information, then that customer sentiment will never get excited at a permit, but you can keep it neutral. And so what you're really doing is taking this kind of crazy modulation of customer emotions, mapping it out and trying to see, can you kind of just be able to take up some of those low points and maybe take some of the high points even higher. And at those high points, those are the moments where you actually want to reach out to the customers, ask for a review, ask for a referral. So those mapping out the customer journey and the sentiments of those and focusing on the sales operation handoff and the operations to service handoff is actually pretty key. That's what I recommend all companies do, with or without Bodhi. But like I said, we do that as part of our onboarding process.
Well, what I think is fascinating is that recommendation sounds like a pretty simple adjustment for installers, But at the end of the day, installers are just a bunch of great people, right? Most of the business for an installer is people.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only go as far as your people. And obviously, technology is a big part of helping them be the best versions of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really
Exactly.
fascinating. All right, Scott, I think some headlines here from my vantage point and some data to walk away with. Weeks to days to get a signature, right? So that's at least a
Weeks to
50%.
hours.
Weeks to hours. Okay, so that's a
Mm-hmm.
massive improvement to get a signature and getting glass on the roof. At least doubling project handling as you scale your business, 30% more referrals, especially when referrals are the best leads and helping them to a close, and avoiding that massive cancellation between signature and permitting or PTO. I mean, this is not just an ops discussion when we talk about customer experience. This is a full value chain discussion. And I think that's something that's critical as we get out of the world of the old days of solar where we were not being as thoughtful about our process and we move into hopefully the next generation of solar through this next decade. Scott Nguyen, thank you very much for joining us and can't wait to speak to you soon.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me and really enjoyed the conversation, Jason.
Likewise.